Now, there's a few things politically with this movie I didn't quite agree with.
Oh yes, please Ben Davies. Please tell us what political message you found objectionable in a superhero movie.
Hela in this movie, I think they were trying to come across as an authoritarian dictator, Trumpian kind of ruler.
Now that you mention it, it does seem obvious to me. I mean, look at those two pictures. On the one side, you have a man wearing a MAGA hat, and the other you have a woman also wearing a hat, or helmet, or something. Sure, they might not look anything alike, but the connection is obvious. If that wasn't enough, you have Trump holding a golf club and Hela there holding swords. Both can be dangerous in the wrong hands. Trump's fake tan is clearly mirrored in Hela's dark attire and emo-like makeup. And we all know that supervillains in movies are never authoritarian in nature. They usually love to share pictures of their puppy, and taking over a nation, planet, or galaxy is never one of their goals. Of course Hela is the spitting image of Trump. It's uncanny, really. I can't believe I never noticed it before now.
Where she comes back and she's like, no, I'm going to make Asgard great again and go back to our roots, go back to what made us great. And she's very much that kind of beat you down person throughout the entire movie, but specifically when it comes to the country itself.
Like most villains. That's what makes them villains, Ben. In the comics, Hela is actually Loki's daughter and the ruler of Hell. And throughout her history, her primary goal was to take over Asgard, just like in the movie. Take this bit from The Hollywood Reporter. As Loki's daughter, Hela has been a longtime thorn in the side of both Thor and Odin. Since her comic book debut in 1964's Journey into Mystery number 102, she has continually tried to take over Asgard, take down Thor, or just generally spread mischief and wrongdoing wherever possible, especially if it means she can add to her undead armies. Of course, being Loki's daughter, she's also spent her fair share of time working with Thor, Odin, and other heroes if and when it suits her purposes. That side of the family is nothing if not self-serving. So unless you think Marvel knew Trump would be elected in 1964, your assertion that she was meant to be some sort of Trumpian ruler is absurd.
And in one specific scene, Helena literally destroys a mural of the history of Asgard, where it shows peace and prosperity for all the kingdoms, which they are being lived in, but she tears it down to show that no, we actually were a conquering, destroying civilization that murdered all these things, and our civilization is built on the backs of soldiers and the people that we have murdered in the past, and we're actually a very evil society and evil culture that we need to go back to our old roots.
Right. That has nothing to do with Trump. She was revealing that while Thor believed Asgard was always peaceful, it was actually built on conquest. Only after Odin decided to foster peace did Hela and Odin part ways, with Odin banishing Hela. And no, it wasn't saying they were an evil culture. She wanted to go back and finish the job she and Odin had started by raising Asgard to the status of a superpower. Meanwhile, Thor, and it seems most of the Asgardians, didn't want anything to do with that. Instead, they wanted to live in peace. Again, nothing to do with Trump. It's a story. It's a fantasy story. Can we not just have fun watching a movie without trying to make it political?
So much so that Thor even accepts this and is willing to destroy his entire country to take down Hela.
He didn't accept that he belonged to an evil culture. He accepts the fact that he isn't powerful enough to stop Hela on his own. So he decides to unleash Ragnarok, because he understands it's the only way to stop Hela. It's not like he was happy about the decision. It was just the only option available to him at the time.
Now, a common theme in the movie was Asgard is not a place, it's a people. The people are what make it great. No. You can have a great person living in Nazi Germany, and you can have a garbage human being who's also an Antifa member living in the United States. It happens. But those individuals do not define the society. A society and a civilization are defined by the principles and values that it perpetuates.
And who perpetuates those principles and values, Ben? If you remove the citizenry, you end up with no country. What you have is a hunk of land. The great human being and the Antifa member are both contributors to that society. Of course, they don't define that society on their own. But if you have a country that largely accepts Nazi or Antifa ideology, then you're likely in a country that perpetuates Nazi and Antifa's principles and values. Yes, it's the people who make up a culture. That's just common sense.
I had one of these debates with a friend in LA, and he was saying that, oh, America's got so many problems, America's kind of a bad place. You know, I went to Cuba recently, and Cuba is beautiful, it's amazing. Like, that is actually a great culture. That's a great place. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. I just never heard anyone in the United States swimming through shark-infested waters and abandoning their family to get to Cuba because it's so great. And immediately the conversation ends because you're right. In reality, that is a total lie. Yes, every civilization has had blemishes. No history is perfect. But what are the values and principles of this culture that people are flocking to? Where people can prosper, where you can be yourself and have these freedoms to live the life that you want to live. So yes, what made Asgard great may not be the specific location, but the people there are not just good people because they're good people. They're good people because they're raised in a society and a culture that helps them be that way, that gives them the opportunity and has standards that they live by.
You've now come full circle and admitted that your original assertion is complete nonsense. It's the people of Asgard who created those standards, and they're the ones that enforce them as well. In other words, it's the people of Asgard that are important, not the land they occupy, which is what the movie was trying to get across.
Now when it comes to faith, Disney did not include any overt Christian themes. Yes, Thor is a great figure. He's an honorable man that helps sacrifice himself to save people around him that are undeserving. It's a great moral lesson. It's a great person to look up to. But there were no overt Christian messages necessarily. There is an interesting metaphor when you look at the Old Testament, though, when it comes to the Asgardian people. The Asgardian people become a people wandering the wilderness without a home, wandering in the space, trying to find a new land. Similar to the Old Testament Israelites who are pushed out through Babylonian rule, but nothing overt in the film, but there's some interesting parallels when you think about it from that perspective.
Ben, the movie had nothing to do with Christianity, and many fantasy stories revolve around a displaced people, including the made-up tales in your Bible. There are no parallels, and you're simply reaching to find some way to connect a movie that's supposed to be fun and entertaining with your ancient death cult of a religion. Just stop it. It's embarrassing. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Take care and cheers.